What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Fab Forums. This week, we work on the C10 some more. This episode of the Fab Forums is brought to you by Kill Fab Clothing Company. Find killer clothing over at killfab.com. So, I made a ton of progress on this thing this week. Got it really blown apart and a lot of the stuff put back on. So on last week's episode, went over all the parts that I purchased for this thing. Got a ton of them, ton of boxes. We opened up a bunch of them. And we started kind of disassembling a lot of this. Took the seats out, took a lot of the interior out. But we didn't get to all of it. So first things on the list were finish up the interior, got the rest of the interior out of it. Then we went to the front end. Headlight bezels, the grill came off. All the headlight pieces and parts came off. Once we got all that, took the fenders off. I'd mentioned in the previous video that we had to take the fenders off in order to line the doors, and there was some other things I wanted to address while we had those off as well. Back on this thing, last episode, kind of blew this thing apart, took everything off of it that needed to be taken off. And I replaced some stuff, replaced the door handles, the mirrors. Didn't see it on camera, but all of the bushings, the cab bushings and the radiator support bushings have been replaced. What else? I think that's it. I think everything else is just taking it apart. So this episode, we're gonna start kind of going back together with this thing. I've already painted. So you can see that I've already painted everything. So radiator core support's been painted. All this under here has been painted. Just a satin black paint, nothing too shiny. Inner fender well has been painted. And then I kind of hit the back side of everything as well. And same thing with the rails in the back. One of my main concerns was this fuel tank here. You could kind of see it when you walked up to the truck. Between the cab and the bed, you could kind of see that fuel tank in there, and it was, just old. So now it's all nice and painted there. So yeah, everything looks pretty good. No major issues. There was a little bit of rust underneath the battery tray. The battery tray itself is toast. You can see that just the battery acid is kind of just eating that thing away to nothing. So I'm gonna toss that, gonna try to find another one. I'm having a hard time finding one right now, but I think I can find one at some point. And then all the ancillary pieces that go in this thing, the jack and the tire tool and all that stuff will be painted to go back in. So yeah, there was a little bit of rust up in here. So I actually priced these on LMC. I think you can get them for like 40 bucks. So it's not too bad. I'll probably order one of those and just replace that whole piece. But yeah, painted. And then some of the stuff I didn't paint. So like the fan shroud I didn't paint because I'm just gonna clean it. And then, anything that can be cleaned really well, you don't want to paint it, in my opinion, because then it looks kind of fake. The stuff that was painted originally and it kind of just wore off, then that's what you repaint. Everything else, you just clean it real good. So I'm gonna kind of reroute some of these lines, fix these battery cables. Got a lot to do, but right now what I want to work on is this master cylinder. So the master cylinders themselves, you can't just paint them with regular paint because brake fluid is very corrosive and it'll just eat that paint right off. Matter of fact, if you have like a brake fluid leak, it'll just eat the paint off anything, even if it's car paint. It'll literally just eat it right off. The dually was a prime example of that. The inner fender wells on the dually were painted red to match the exterior of the truck, and it had a brake fluid leak at one point and it just ate all the paint right off it. So there is stuff you can paint it with though that will withstand it. And that is this product right here from Eastwood. It is actually they advertise it as a brake caliper, high temp caliper paint. But because it's a brake caliper, it also is very, very resistant to chemical and chips. So this stuff's super strong. It's a two-part deal. So it's got an activator as well. So I'm gonna mix some of this stuff up, kind of tape off that thing the best I can. And we're gonna paint that master cylinder, and then I wanna paint the brake booster as well. Not gonna do it with that though. This stuff's really shiny. They may have a more of a satin finish, but this is like a gloss finish here. So the booster itself, I'll just spray with a satin paint. Not as worried about it having trouble. So anyway, mix this up and paint that thing and see how it looks. Show you the finished product on the booster. So it turned out really nice. All nicely coated. It won't be affected by any brake fluid that might leak out of this thing. And I ended up doing the actual vacuum booster as well, just because sometimes these things will leak from in here and they'll tend to kind of run down and leak off the bottom and peel a lot of the paint up. So what I may do though is I've got a good base of that 2-part paint on there. I may just go over this with like a satin, leave this kind of glossy and just roll with it, or maybe just leave it the way it is. I don't know, it sticks out pretty good, so I may tone it down just a smidge. We also was able to take the bed off. You know, we went through all the trouble to take all the bolts out and stuff, and it wasn't as hard as I thought it was, because we were just able to disconnect those fuel tank fillers, kind of tuck them out of the way, pick that bed up, lift it off. And that's kind of the same thing applies with the back part of the truck as it did with the front. I could open it up, I could see what's going on in there. I could clean up and paint a lot of those things in there that I wouldn't be able to reach normally, and really glad I did. So as far as putting this thing back together, got a lot done. Got the carpet laying in here. Started working on the headliner. I got the dash out, started working on flipping some of that stuff over, as well as the door panels. Coming together pretty nicely. Got everything done. I actually cleaned these pieces up the best I could, since they're being reused. I got to figure out the orientation of the window switches, because I don't want it. You don't want to put it in there upside down and then it roll down when you push up and whatever. But before I can do that, I got to finish up the door itself. Got all new clips. So these things are super bad about, well, they're not bad about breaking. They're just hard to get out, and you end up breaking them is really the easiest way. And so it's just easier to just buy new ones. One of the things I did though, since I was already in here kind of tearing everything apart, is I bought new door lock actuators. So the ones that are in there work, or I know one of them worked. I wasn't sure about the other one, but I figured, you know, I'm in here, might as well go ahead and replace them. I'd hate to have all this thing back together and then, you know, 2 months down the road, one of them goes out. So I'm going to replace that, put all these locks back in, get all the rods back in there. Basically just put the whole interior of this door back together. And then I'll finish up these door panels and get these things mounted. All right guys, that's it for this video. A lot more to come. I'm gonna try to wrap this thing up in one more video though. I don't wanna kind of drag this out for too long. Got a lot to do though. Still gotta paint some of the needles on the gauge cluster. And obviously, I mean, all this stuff has to go back together. Carpet's gotta go in, headliner's gotta be finished. I'm gonna end up painting all the plastics that go in there, so that's gotta happen. new seat belts. Got to put the whole front end back together. I'm kind of waiting on some parts to put the front back together. I ended up ordering new striker bolts, so I can't really align the doors until I get the new striker bolts in. Can't put the fenders on until the doors are aligned. I can't put the front grille and all the headlight bezels and all that stuff back together because I'm waiting on a lot of the factory plastic pieces that kind of slide in there. I wanted all that stuff to be new, so I'm still waiting on that. What else am I waiting on? Yeah, just a lot of stuff holding me back. Like one little part keeps me from doing a bunch of little things. Can't put the dash back in until I paint the cluster, because the cluster has to go back in, which I could probably do that. I'm not waiting on any parts for that. I actually got the paint today, so probably make that happen. So anyways, as always, thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this build. I'll see you guys some more next week. Go do work, son.